What's up, guys? TheDevildogGamer here, and today we are talking about the sinking of the Russian ship, the Moskva, the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet. Now, there's a lot of news, pictures, information about it, but my main question is, can we simulate the circumstances of this sinking in simulators? We have two very powerful combat simulators where we can test this entire thing with the actual ship. One of them being DCS, which is the premier combat flight simulator where every aircraft is a one-to-one replication of it, including every switch, every system, radar, and everything is working really well. And the other one is Command Modern Operations, which is used by a lot of countries to test war games and things like that. It's a very, very crazy and intricate simulator with a very just simple UI. Now, the story of how the Ukrainians sunk this thing is they used Neptune anti-ship missiles, which are converted Russian Kh-35 anti-ship missiles. Now, they definitely got, ISR information from NATO and the US because obviously they don't have the capabilities for that. So on a really stormy night with about 7-foot seas, they decided to launch their attack, and they used the ship's weaknesses, because it is an older ship, against it. They used a Bayraktar drone to get the main search radar, which has a 180-degree arc, to look the opposite direction of where the missiles were coming. And then they launched the Neptune anti-ship missiles on the blind side. Now, because of the weather and the high seas, the search radar, the 360-degree search radar that was left to defend the ship, couldn't really see those missiles and couldn't really make those missiles out from the wave tops and, just the crazy storm. So basically, they fired it into the blind side of the ship, and there was nothing the ship could do. To compound that fact, you're dealing with Russian crews who are notoriously not well trained or, competent, to say the least. And with anything like that, ship defenses, a man in the loop is always the biggest weakness, and it shows itself as the biggest weakness. Because if it was all automated, they probably would have picked these missiles up and two wouldn't get through. The main tactic of taking out ships is to saturate its defenses with anti-ship missiles, but this one, judging by just the time and the way they did it, two were able to sneak through. After taking the 2 missile hits, though, the ship was pretty much a goner. You could evacuate the crew, what crew survived, but with an uncontrolled fire and hits on the waterline, which we've seen from pictures, it was going to sink, and it ended up sinking the next day. So let's take a look and see if we can recreate this in the 2 most realistic simulators we have available. So here we have the Moskva in DCS, and as you can see, it is rainy, it is stormy, and this is going to help because DCS, the weather does affect the radar. Now, this should make it to where the missiles can actually reach a little closer. Now, for the launch vehicle, we have an Su-34 with the Kh-35s. Now, remember, the Neptunes are modified Kh-35s. So these are going to be the 2 anti-ship missiles that are fired at it. And then over here, we have a Predator drone that's in kind of an opposite direction to kind of keep them looking. There's the Predator, there's the Moskva. The missiles are going to come from here in Ukraine, and hopefully the Moskva is going to turn and focus on the Predator drone, and then the missiles are going to be launched within here. They're kind of in a range that might be difficult for them to detect, but the weather is going to be a big issue right now on here. I could have made it nighttime, but that doesn't help anybody in viewing this simulation whatsoever. You're going to be staring at a black screen the whole time. So we're going to wait until they're actually launched. There they go. 2 Kh-35s out and on the way. They're going to drop to the deck and skim. And then now over here, the Moskva is kind of just chilling, doing its thing. You can see its radars moving. Now, the big radar in the back, you're not going to see that gimbal in any sort of way and move, but you will see the SA-8s pop out of these 2 little discs here. They're kind of buried down below. They'll pop up when they want to engage, along with the S-300s coming out here. As you can see, there are already 1 or 2 open, ready to go down there. So it's going to take a hot minute, but they're going to get here, and we'll see exactly what they can do. There they are. They're sea skimming around, let's see, 50 feet off the ground. And they are slowly closing the distance. So it's going to take a little while before they get here. All right, the missiles are closing now. The wind is kind of pushing them off target, and you can see they're kind of correcting a little bit now because the radar's kicked on. They're picking up the ship. And now all we gotta do is wait. There you go. You can see the ship there in the distance. Ship is doing absolutely nothing right now. No response. It can't see the missiles at all. It's not seeing any of them at all. And they're closing right now. They are pretty dang close at the moment. There should be within range of some of the self-defense weapons, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's just absolutely blind. You can see them right there in the distance, the smoke trails coming off of them. The wind might have caused too much drift. Nope, they're snapping. Their radar picked it up. Nope, no response. Oh my god. And right amidship. Not a chance in the world. No response. Nothing. Wow. Now we're on to Command Modern Operations. Now the difference between Command Modern Operations and DCS is that this is used by, while DCS is used by the Air Force in some capacity for their aircraft simulators, this is used by a ton of different militaries and countries to simulate war games. So they have everything from ground, naval, you know, aircraft. All the sensors are realistic. When you get to the radar and weather, that's all very realistic, and pretty much anything you can think of is in this game, including nuclear weapons and anti-ballistic missiles and stuff. Now, the problem with this, though, is that it's designed to, when you're fighting battles, everyone's crew or pilots and stuff are at their peak level. The man in the loop is at a pretty much what countries tout them to be level. So there's no real delay between spotting and engaging targets and things like that. It's meant to really challenge nations when they are doing these war games to show their enemy with their realistic weaponry and sensors and stuff at a complete, you know, robotic level of, you know, competence. So that's what you're going to see here. You're going to see that what if the Moskva had really good crews and their crews are paying attention. Over here we have the Bayraktar hanging out over near Crimea to get them to look the other way. Also, we have an SSC 6 Senate. Now, this is a Russian vehicle because they don't have the Neptune's very new, believe it or not. So they don't have it in this yet with the database, but this does fire rocket-boosted KH-35s. Now, I couldn't figure out what radar they used on the ground, and, you know, Ukraine stuff is still very new, especially when it comes to this Neptune whole system. So we ended up just putting a P-8 Poseidon up here to provide the targeting needed for these missiles, you know, to be able to see it, get a bearing, launch, and then the radar would pick it up. So this is going to be very interesting to see what it's going to do the second it kind of kicks off and things happen. So we're going to put on the P-8 Poseidon's radar and see what happens. So there it is. We have a Skunk 1 spotted. That is the Moskva. So we're going to manual target, and we're going to launch only 2 missiles, but we have to wait. The OTA loop limitation's 30 seconds, so we got to wait a little while before we can launch. Keep the Bayraktar over here to keep its eyes over here at the same time. We should be able to fire here soon. Let's see. Yep. All right, 2 KH-35s outbound. Now, this is a very close distance, and as you can see, we fired them out. They're going to try to just go and do their own path. It uses GLONASS here and there, so it's going to go and try to find an optimal route to avoid any of this. All right, so it's on its route, and then it'll kick on its radar here soon. We're actually going to jump to God's Eye so you can see everything and what they're actually doing in the moment, including the Moskva. Okay, now they're approaching. They should be able to start being detected now if the radar was actually looking this way. Nope. Now right here is where the close-in range shit's going to kick off. No, okay, didn't detect it. Once the radar kicks on the KH-35, though, that's when it's going to get interesting. There it is, okay. The radar kicked on. Immediately, the crew threw on the jamming system. So there's probably shafts and flares being fired all over the place. Which I highly doubt. Both radars are on. You see it taking immediately, I mean, just absolutely immediately, it's taking all sorts of defensive measures to begin with, but they're still not getting a radar lock onto them with the with any of the missiles. Oh, here we go. Oh, there's one out. A gecko's out. Sea-Wiz got it. Sea-Wiz is gonna get it. It's closing. It's closing. Yep, Sea-Wiz. Both Sea-Wizes got that thing. Just absolutely hammered. Now, because it's aware, if we fired another salvo, it's immediately going to get destroyed. And here I'll show you, because now it's aware of what's going on. All the radars are all pointed in the right direction, so if we do a follow-up salvo of 2, guaranteed they're going to get immediately shot down by the long-range batteries. Guaranteed. So we're actually going to throw it back on the God's Eye so we can see both sides. Speed it up a little bit and watch. There it goes. Bang, bang. Bang, bang. Done. So that's basically in a nutshell of what it would look like if the crews were completely the most competent people ever and were 100% trained, 100% alert, nobody was suffering at all or focused anywhere else. They would be able to stop them. No problem. No problem. So with a crew like that, how do you get missiles through? Well, I'm going to show you. So when you want to take out a very strong adversary on the seas, you go back to the old Cold War doctrine, especially when it comes to the Soviet side on taking out a carrier. You basically got to throw every anti-ship missile you have at it and just salvo it. Eventually, one will get through. You can't just launch 1 or 2 missiles. That's not how the capability works for a lot of things. In this scenario, with what actually happened, all the stars aligned and it was the perfect scenario. But if it was clear weather, if the radars weren't looking the wrong way, 2 missiles would have never gotten through, even with a completely incompetent crew. But say even, if the crew was operating at 100% with the weather and everything it was, and, just the whole situation, you would still have to salvo it because they would be able to get 2 missiles easily, especially these, KH-35s and harpoons. They're not very quick. They're not very good anti-ship missiles in the grand scheme of things. So to get through this, we're going to need to salvo all 16 KH-35s. And I guarantee probably 1 will get through with, everything going on. So now they're going to fire all 16 of them. And we're going to switch over to God's Eye. And so far, they still don't see anything. They haven't seen the launch. This is the max launch range for this ship. So this could easily start engaging with its S-300s, no problem if it spots them. But because of the weather and the way the radar's looking, its long-range radar is pretty useless. The 360 radar, though, is still kind of being in use, but is diminished. But once these things kick off into their own, using their own radar, the ship knows it's coming, and it's basically game over. So, here we go. They're going to start engaging here soon. Bang. Radar's on all of them. Ship's taking evasive action. The missiles are being jammed, but they're strong. They're close enough now that the jamming doesn't matter because they're doing a burn through. The jammer doesn't matter because you can see right here, this one already burned through. No, they're still being jammed, but they're burning through. All the SA-6 are popping off, but it's too close. Sea-Wizes are going off. SA-8s are going off. Sea-Wiz is doing its thing. A lot of misses. A lot of misses. Oh my gosh. It actually, wow, they hit? No way, dude. It's getting through. Now, I'm sure because of the damage, I'm sure a lot of this it's operating at a lesser capacity now. So we're going to switch off to God's Eye so we can actually take a look. We're going to go to Russia, and I want to see this thing's... Wow, it's on fire already. Holy moly, 63% damage. One of the Sea-Wizes is destroyed. The P-1000's destroyed, so the big anti-ship missile on the side got nailed. That's gone. The magazines aren't detonated yet. The top pair, that's gone, so we're losing a radar. Pop group is... Rum nub. It's losing a lot of stuff here. The hangar's been damaged. Oh no, operational. Been damaged, but operational. Okay, let's go back to God's Eye and kick it off so we can actually see what's happening here. Another missile's hit. It is absolutely on fire, and it's been destroyed. So, even operating at 100%, if you start just lobbing a massive amount of anti-ship missiles, eventually you're going to overwhelm the defenses, and it'll just be absolutely crazy. There's no way it can survive at all. This whole engagement is pretty plausible, and it can be recreated in even the two most realistic simulators that we have our hands on. And without fail. But, you know, even if we bumped the cruise up in its operating level, it still would have gotten sunk if you threw a full salvo at it. It just kind of goes to show that anti-ship missiles are still deadly. They're still very usable if you use them in the right conditions or in the right settings, or, you know, to their strengths and using ships' weaknesses against themselves, which the Ukrainians did and absolutely worked for them. You know, these are old ships, old systems. But if you use the anti-ship missiles in a creative way, you can absolutely do some damage and knock these ships out, no problem. Nothing's invincible, and we've all learned from past wars that even, you know, the greatest, best ship ever made can still be taken out and is not invincible. So this is a really cool little experiment that we ran. The ship died every single time. So it's kind of fun to see that we can actually recreate it in a simulator. But let me know what you guys think about the simulator. Would you have changed something? Were you, you know, you agree with what you saw? Let me know in the comments below. Talk to you guys later. Peace.